Good morning and good afternoon. I am Mr. Bradley, and I'm here to discuss the rise and spread of Islam with you. It would be a good idea to have your notebook handy to follow along and will help you process this topic. It will help you answer the questions for understanding today and will also help on assessments coming up. The Arabian Peninsula is a crossroads of three continents, Africa, Europe, and Asia. At its longest and widest points, the peninsula is about 1,200 miles from north to south and 1,300 miles from east to west. Only a tiny strip of fertile land in South Arabia and Oman and a few oases can support agriculture. The remainder of the land is desert, which in the past was inhabited by nomadic Arab herders. On this desert, the Arab nomads, called Bedouins, were organized into tribes and groups called clans. These clans provided security and support for a life made difficult by the extreme conditions of the desert. The Bedouin ideals of courage and loyalty to family, along with their warrior skills, would become part of the Islamic way of life. The areas with more fertile soil and the larger oases had enough water to support farming communities. By the early 600s, many Arabs had chosen to settle in an oasis or in a market town. Larger towns near the western coast of Arabia became market towns for local, regional, and long-distance trade goods. By the early 600s, many trade routes connected Arabia to the major ocean and land trade routes, as you can see on the map. Trade routes through Arabia ran from the extreme south of the peninsula to the Byzantine and the Sassanid empires to the north. Merchants from these two empires moved along the caravan routes, trading for goods from the Silk Roads of the east. They transported spices and incense from Yemen and other products from the west. They also carried information and ideas from the outside world, Arabia, or the world outside Arabia, During certain holy months, caravans stopped in Mecca, a city in western Arabia. They brought religious pilgrims who came to worship at an ancient shrine in the city called the Kaaba. Over the years, the Arabs had introduced the worship of many gods and spirits to this place. The Kaaba contained over 360 idols brought by many tribes. The Quran associated this house of worship with Abraham, a believer in one God and considered a prophet. The concept of belief in one God, called Allah in Arabic, was known on the Arabian Peninsula. Many Christians and Jews lived there and practiced monotheism. Into this mixed religious environment of Mecca, around AD 570, Muhammad was born. Muhammad was born into the clan of a powerful Meccan family. Orphaned at the age of 6, Muhammad was raised by his grandfather and his uncle. He received little schooling and began working in the caravan trades as a young man. At the age of 25, Muhammad became a trader and a business manager for Khadija, a wealthy businesswoman of about 40. Later, Muhammad and Khadija married. Theirs was a good marriage and had a good business partnership. Muhammad took great interest in religion and often spent time alone in prayer and meditation. At about the age of 40, Muhammad's life was changed overnight when he believed a voice called to him when he meditated in a cave outside Mecca. According to Muslim belief, the voice was that of an angel, Gabriel, who told Muhammad that he was a messenger of Allah. After soul searching, Muhammad came to believe that the Lord who spoke to him through Gabriel was Allah. Muhammad became convinced that he was the last of the prophets. He began to teach that Allah was one and only God, and that all other gods must be abandoned. People who agreed to this basic principle of Islam were called Muslims. In Arabic, Islam means submission to the will of Allah. Muslim means one who has submitted. Muhammad's wife Khadija and several close friends and relatives were his first followers. By 613, Muhammad had begun to preach publicly in Mecca, but he met with some hostility. Many Meccans believed his revolutionary ideas would lead to the neglect of the traditional Arab gods. They believed Mecca would lose its position as a pilgrimage center if people accepted Muhammad's monotheistic beliefs. After some of his followers had been attacked, Muhammad decided to leave Mecca in 622. Following a small band of supporters he sent ahead, Muhammad moved to the town of Yathrib, over 200 miles to the north of Mecca. This migration became known as the Hijra. The Hijra to Yathrib marked a turning point for Muhammad. He attracted many devoted followers. Later, Yathrib was renamed Medina. In Medina, Muhammad displayed impressive leadership skills. He fashioned an agreement that joined his own people with the Arabs and Jews of Medina as a single community. These groups accepted Muhammad as a political leader. As a religious leader, he drew many more converts who found his message appealing. Finally, Muhammad also became a military leader in the growing hostilities between Mecca and Medina. In 630, Muhammad and 10,000 of his followers marched to the outskirts of Mecca, facing sure defeat. Mecca's leaders surrendered. Muhammad entered the city in triumph. He destroyed the idols in the Kaaba and had the call to prayer made from its roof. Most Meccans pledged their loyalty to Muhammad, and many converted to Islam. By doing so, they joined the Ummah, or Muslim religious community. Muhammad died 2 years later at about the age of 62. However, he had taken great strides towards unifying the entire Arabian Peninsula under Islam. The central teaching of Islam is that there is only one God, Allah, and other beliefs and practices follow from this teaching. Islam teaches that there is good and evil, and that each individual is responsible for the actions of his or her life. To be a Muslim, all believers have to carry out 5 duties. These duties are known as the 5 pillars of Islam. Faith. To become a Muslim, a person has to testify to the following statement of faith: there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. This simple statement is heard again and again in the Islamic rituals and in Muslim daily life. Prayer. 5 times a day, Muslims face towards Mecca and pray. They may assemble at a mosque, an Islamic house of worship, or wherever they may find themselves. Alms. Muhammad taught that all Muslims have a responsibility to support the less fortunate. Muslims meet that social responsibility by giving alms or money to the poor through a special religious tax. Fasting. During the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, Muslims fast between dawn and sunset. A simple meal is eaten at the end of the day. Fasting serves to remind Muslims that their spiritual needs are greater than their physical needs. And pilgrimage. All Muslims who are physically and financially able to perform the Hajj or pilgrimage to Mecca at least once. Pilgrims wear identical garments so that all stand as equals before Allah. Carrying out the 5 pillars of Islam ensures that Muslims live their religion while serving their community. Along with the 5 pillars, there are other customs, morals, and laws for Islamic society and affect Muslims' daily lives. Believers are forbidden to drink alcohol, eat pork, and Friday afternoons are set aside for communal worship. Unlike many other religions, Islam has no priest or central religious authority. Every Muslim is expected to worship Allah directly. Islam does, however, have a scholar class called the ulama. The ulama includes religious teachers who apply the words and deeds of Muhammad to everyday life. The original source of authority for Muslims is Allah. According to Islamic belief, Allah expressed his will through the angel Gabriel, who revealed it to Muhammad. While Muhammad lived, his followers memorized and recited the revelations he received from Gabriel. Soon after Muhammad's death, it was suggested that the revelations to be collected in a book. And the book is the Quran, the holy book of the Muslims. The Quran is written in Arabic, and Muslims consider only the Arabic version to be the true word of Allah. Only Arabic can be used in worship. Wherever Muslims carried the Quran, Arabic became the language of worshippers and scholars. Thus, the Arabic language helped unite conquered peoples as Muslims' control expanded. Muslims believe that Muhammad's mission as a prophet was to receive the Quran and to demonstrate how to apply it to life. To them, the Sunnah, or Muhammad's example, is the best model for proper living. The guidance of the Quran and the Sunnah were assembled in a body of law known as the Sharia. This system of law regulates family relationships, moral conduct, business, political, and community life of Muslims. To Muslims, Allah is the same God that is worshipped in Christianity and Judaism. However, Muslims view Jesus as a prophet, not as the Son of God. They regard the Quran as the word of Allah, as revealed to Muhammad, in a similar way to the beliefs of Jews and Christians in their holy scriptures. Muslims believe that the Quran perfects the earlier revelations. To them, it's the final book, and Muhammad was the final prophet. All three religions believe in heaven and hell and a day of judgment. The Muslims trace their ancestry to Abraham, as do the Jews and Christians. Muslims refer to Christians and Jews as people of the book, because each religion has a holy book with teachings similar to those of the Quran. Sharia law requires Muslim leaders to extend religious tolerance to Christians and Jews. A huge Muslim empire, as you grew to include people of many different cultures and religions. When Muhammad died in 632, the community faced a crisis. Muslims, inspired by the message of Allah, believed they had a duty to carry his word to the world. However, they lacked a clear way to choose a new leader. Eventually, the issue of leadership would divide the Muslim world. Muhammad had not named a successor or instructed his followers on how to choose one. Relying on ancient tribal custom, the Muslim community elected their new leader, Abu Bakr, a loyal friend of Muhammad in 632. He became the first caliph, a title that means successor or deputy. Caliphs Abu Bakr and the next three elected caliphs, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, all had known Muhammad. They used the Quran as Muhammad's actions as guides to leadership. For this, they are known as the rightly guided caliphs. Their rule was called a caliphate. Abu Bakr had promised the Muslim community that he would uphold what Muhammad stood for. Shortly after Muhammad's death, some tribes in the Arabian Peninsula abandoned Islam. Others refused to pay taxes, and a few individuals even declared themselves prophets. For the sake of Islam, Abu Bakr invoked jihad. The word jihad means striving and can refer to the inner struggle against evil. However, the word is also used in the Quran to mean armed struggle against unbelievers. For the next 2 years, Abu Bakr applied this meaning of jihad to encourage and justify the expansion of Islam. When Abu Bakr died in 634, the Muslim state controlled all of Arabia. Under Umar, the second caliph, Muslim armies conquered Syria and Lower Egypt, which were part of the Byzantine Empire. They also took parts of the Sassanid Empire. The next two caliphs, Uthman and Ali, continued to expand Muslim territory. By 750, the Muslim empire stretched 6,000 miles across parts of three continents: Asia, Africa, and Europe. The four rightly guided caliphs made this great progress in their quest to spread Islam. And before his death, Muhammad had expressed the desire to spread the faith to the peoples of the north. Muslims of the day saw their victories as a sign of Allah's support and drew energy and inspiration from their faith. They fought to defend Islam and were willing to struggle to extend its word. Muslim armies were disciplined and expertly commanded. However, the success of the armies was also due to weaknesses in the two empires north of Arabia. The Byzantine and the Sassanid empires had been in conflict for a long time and were exhausted militarily. Another reason for the Muslim success was the persecution suffered by people under the Byzantine and the Sassanid rule because they did not support the official state religions, Christianity or Zoroastrianism. The persecuted people often welcomed the invaders and their cause and chose to accept Islam. They were attracted by the appeal of the message of Islam, which offered equality and hope in this world. They were also attracted to the economic benefit for Muslims of not having to pay a poll tax. Muslims allowed conquered peoples to follow their own religion because the Quran forbade forced conversion of people of the book. Conquered Christians and Jews received special consideration. However, they were subject to certain restrictions. For example, they were not allowed to spread their religion. Also, they were required to pay a poll tax each year in exchange for exemption from military duties. At first, tolerance like this was practiced in Muslim territories in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Later Muslim rulers, however, treated non-believers more harshly. In North Africa, for example, Jews and Christians who refused to accept Islam were killed. Despite spectacular gains on the battlefield, the Muslim community had difficulty maintaining a unified rule. In 656, Uthman was murdered, starting a civil war in which various groups struggled for power. Ali, as Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, was the natural choice as the successor for Uthman. However, his right to rule was challenged by a governor of Syria. Then in 661, Ali too was assassinated. The elected system of choosing a caliph died with him. A family known as the Umayyads then came to power. The Umayyads moved the Muslim capital to Damascus. This location, away from Mecca, made controlling conquered territories easier. However, the Arab Muslims felt it was too far away from their lands. In addition, the Umayyads abandoned their simple life in previous caliphs and began to surround themselves with wealth and ceremony similar to that of non-Muslim rulers. These actions, along with the leadership issue, gave rise to a fundamental division in the Muslim community. In the interest of peace, the majority of Muslims accepted the Umayyads' rule. However, a minority continued to resist. This group developed an alternate view of the office of the caliph. In this view, the caliph needed to be a descendant of Muhammad. This group was called the Shia, meaning the party of Ali. Members of this group are called Shiites. Those who did not outwardly resist the rule of the Umayyads later became known as the Sunni, meaning followers of Muhammad's example. Another group, the Sufi, rejected the luxurious life of the Umayyads and pursued the life of poverty and devotion to a spiritual path. Vigorous religious and political opposition to the Umayyad Caliphate led to its downfall. Rebel groups overthrew the Umayyads in the year 750. The most powerful of these groups, the Abbasids, took control of the empire. When the Abbasids came to power in 750, they ruthlessly murdered the remaining members of the Umayyad family. One prince named Abd al-Rahman escaped the slaughter and fled to Spain. There he set up the Umayyad Caliphate. Spain had already been conquered and settled by Muslims in North Africa, who were known as Berbers. The Berber armies advanced into Europe within 200 miles of Paris before being halted at the Battle of Tours in 732. They then settled in southern Spain, where they helped form an extraordinary Muslim state, Al-Andalus. To solidify power, the Abbasids moved the capital of the empire in 762 to a newly created city, Baghdad, in southwest Asia. The location on key trade routes gave the caliph access to trade goods, gold, and information in the far-flung empire. The Abbasids developed a strong bureaucracy and to conduct the huge empire's affairs. The treasury kept track of the money flow. A special department managed the business of the army. Diplomats from the empire were sent to courts in Europe, Africa, and Asia to conduct imperial business. To support this bureaucracy, the Abbasids taxed land, imports and exports, and non-Muslims' wealth. The Abbasid Caliphate lasted from 750 to 1258. During that time, the Abbasids increased their authority by consulting religious leaders, but they failed to keep complete political control of the immense territory. Independent Muslim states sprang up, and local leaders dominated many smaller regions. The, the Fatimid Caliphate was formed by Shia Muslims who claimed to be descendants from Muhammad's daughter, Fatima. The caliphate began in North Africa and spread across the Red Sea to western Arabia and Syria. However, the Fatimids and other smaller states were still connected to the Abbasid Caliphate through religion, language, trade, and the economy. At this time, two major sea trading networks existed, the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. Through these networks, the Muslim Empire could engage in sea trade with the rest of the world. The land network connected the Silk Roads of China and India with Europe and Africa. Muslim merchants needed only a single language, Arabic, and a single currency, the Abbasid dinar, to travel in the empire. To encourage the flow of trade, Muslim money changers set up banks in cities throughout the empire. Banks offered letters of credit called sacks to merchants. A merchant with a sack from a bank in Baghdad could exchange it for cash at a bank in any other city in the empire. In Europe, sack was pronounced check, thus using checks dates back to the Muslim empire. At one end of the Muslim empire was the city of Cordoba in Al-Andalus. In the 10th century, this city had a population of 200,000. Paris, in contrast, had 38,000. The city attracted poets, philosophers, and scientists. Many non-Muslims adopted Muslim customs, and Cordoba became a dazzling center of Muslim culture. In Cordoba, Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad, a cultural blending of people fueled a period of immense achievements in the arts and the sciences. We will learn much more about that in the Muslim world next time. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day, and we will see you again.